first question, really. A lot of press around you lately with your 97 points on your Vanguardist Grenache. So how's that been?
Yeah, phenomenal response to the write-up and the kind words. And, yeah, I don't know what else to say, really. We've had lots of inquiries, and we're just starting to get the wine out now, so it's exciting.
So you'll obviously it'll be sold out pretty quickly, that one?
Yeah, we hope so. I mean, it's coming out to trade in the next week or so.
Yeah.
And, yeah, there's certainly a few people wanting large orders, but we're trying to spread it out a little bit. It's not a big production at about a couple of cases, so
yeah, that's right.
Trying to give everyone a little piece of the pie, especially those that have supported in the past and been buying that wine for a few years.
Yeah, for sure. And I saw you've got some double magnums and a couple of magnums there to lay down, so that's a good idea. Look at them a little bit later.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all good. So originally you're a Kiwi from Hawke's Bay. What brought you over to Australia?
In the start, it was just vintage hopping and trying to get as much experience in as many different climates with as different many varieties as possible between New Zealand, Australia, France, and USA. And then when I fell in love with Grenache in France in 2009, had the opportunity to work with some Grenache in South Australia in 2015, and thought this is definitely the place for us to really grow our business and do that.
Awesome.
I was just blown away by the quality of Grenache. And the feel that I got in Australia was very similar to the feel I got in the south of France in respect to the bush vines and the age of the vines.
You just found stylistically, though, quite a difference with the riper styles here compared to the, more structured styles in France?
Not really. I mean, down in the south, I think they have made quite ripe wines for a long time, and it's obviously their vintages are a bit more variable probably than South Australia, or everyone's changing fast though. So when I got there as a consultant, I'd probably rein the wines in a bit from that classic sort of 14.5%, 15% quite black fruited style to a more red fruited and slightly more light on its feet style. Anyway, over there. And then, I hadn't really had much influence from any producers over here in Australia with Grenache. I just hadn't been exposed to a lot. So I kind of just made it how I make wine and went from one step to another.
And what got you into wine in the first place? So you grew up in Hawke's Bay?
Grew up in Hawke's Bay, lovely wine centre of New Zealand. Beautiful place. I dearly miss it at times. And I got into hospo, so I was sort of doing a bit of cooking as well as sort of restaurant, bar, management stuff. And then at the point of, it came to a point where I was either looking to become a chef or was getting into wine at the same time, and I sort of was really intrigued, and I had a couple of bottles. I remember a really memorable bottle of wine that I had, which was a 1999 Trinity Hill Merlot, and it just blew my mind. I was like, what the hell? This is not like the Banrock Station that I've been drinking and cutting my teeth on. And just got interested, and I thought, well, this could be a career that may be a little bit smarter than becoming
slaving in the kitchen.
With some of the tendencies that chefs and maybe I might follow through as well with, drugs and alcohol and anger problems.
Yes, many chefs.
Yeah, so I just thought, well, let's study. I just went back to university. Haven't been out of uni for a little while and just got stuck in and just never looked back, really. It's all a bit of a blur since then.
So you did a degree in winemaking, or did you do a degree in... Yeah, you did, And where was that at?
That was at in Hawke's Bay. Hawke's Bay. Yep.
Awesome. So this Sandy Blewett Springs vineyard, I remember you once telling me it was your ideal site for Grenache. Why is that? Can you break that down for me? Like, as in how old the vines are, how is it trained, what's the irrigation and nutrient program for them, or is it just a brilliant site?
It's
naturally.
It's definitely a brilliant site. I mean, it just keeps on giving us amazing fruit. And since 15, I've been taking fruit off the vineyard, and in 6 years we've seen 6 quite different vintages. We started off with 15 being a little bit of water and quite a nice vintage, really. really normal crop load and making a really soft, pretty wine. 16, a good crop load, but a little bit hotter and making a sort of more robust style. 17, back to similar to 15. Then 18, 19, 20 has been dry as anything, hot as anything. And I wouldn't say that they are really flourishing, but they've certainly survived much better than other vineyards that I've had exposure to in Barossa, Clare, Adelaide Hills, in these extreme times. And for me, I'm not even in these years. We're just hoping and praying that it rains, and we have had a little bit of rain. So hopefully, if it comes a little bit more, we'll be all right. But for me, I'm thinking, I don't need to make the world's greatest wine right now. I don't need to make a heap of wine. We just need to help these vines through during this period, and then hope at some point it does start raining again, and maybe we don't have a string of 45-degree days. But
and so there's irrigation on these vines? No,
they're dry grown. 51-year-old bush vines on own roots, planted by so the son of Robert, Randy, who's been around a while. He planted them when he was a youngster with his father, who's also still around. He's not working in the vineyard anymore, at the tender age of about 90. But so they've known and seen this vineyard for its eternity. And when I started working with them, I had grand ideas about, right, we're going to hook straight into biodynamics, and we're going to do organics, and we're going to do this, that, and t'other. And now I've backed off a bit. We're certainly working with an organic regime, and I'm hoping that we can implement some biodynamics again. I think I did some in 2016. But really taking a step back and learning from him, because he's known these vines for 50 years.
Yeah. So that's an interesting approach. So if, as in dry growing, so what would happen if you had you had drought there, extreme drought, where you just didn't get any rain in a year? Because they're a bit older, would they still be able to pull some water from way down the source, or would they?
I believe so. I believe so. I think we've definitely got lower. We've got a lower crop load. I mean, 2019, the Grenache that we just released, that was the lowest crop in 50 years. On record, so it was pretty extreme. I can't see many years being more than extreme than 19, but I suppose now that that's happened, it's only another record to be broken.
Yeah, that's right. So when you get these low yields, that usually you've got a lot more concentration in the juice. Is that correct? Are you getting a little bit more power?
Well, typically, but it depends when you pick. So I don't know if you've tasted the 19 yet, and I don't think it looks like an extremely hot year. I don't think it looks like the lowest crop on record year, because there's a real prettiness about it. And that's probably me learning my craft and knowing what style that I want to make, and making sure that I get out there and get fruit off early enough before it does get, they can be little hand grenades. And the wine could be black, and it could be tannic, and it could be 15% without blinking an eye. But I think
and are you picking these at like a 13 Gourmet, or you're looking at?
I started about 11.
11?
And finish around 14. So it's usually about 3 weeks apart that we pick this thing up.
Yes, right. Okay.
And at every point it brings a different flavour, and it brings a different acidity, and it brings a different aroma, and adds layers of complexity into the wine.
Yeah, so you blend, then you're blending?
Yeah, so we keep everything separate, separate ferments, which could be anywhere from 0 to 100% whole bunch, and they could be anywhere from sort of minimum about 4 weeks to 4 months on skins.
Yep.
And they're all 1 ton. They're all 0.8 ton ferments. I have a 0.8 ton basket press, and that fills about 1 puncheon. So it'll end up going into every single ferment goes to its own puncheon, and then we get to sit back after a few months and look at everything and go, right, that looks like La Petite Vanguard, that looks like Vanguardist. And create the wines like that.
Yeah, beautiful. So if you had a particular winemaking style, how would you describe it? I know it's a tough question.
I think I've been thinking about this week, and I'm looking at some of the comments about the Grenache and just trying to work out where my style is and where my philosophy is, because it's forever changing. We're becoming different human beings, and we're getting more experience, and we're making more mistakes, and we're hopefully learning from them. And I had a good thing today and during the week, and it was mostly about the producers that I drink. And if I was to break that down, we'd be talking about guys like Pierre Gonon, the guys like Gramenon, the Herb Suarts, and a lot of Beaujolais, a lot of Cru Beaujolais, a lot of Rhone, Alamont, and then probably trying to, and just intrinsically maybe having all of those wines that I love in my mind when I'm making these wines. And it's not about trying to emulate who they are, but it's just having a sense of taste and a tannin profile and a fruit sweetness or whatever it is as I'm sort of starting to press these wines. And I think it just runs through. It's all the Barolos. I think Gary mentioned, Giuseppe Mascarello. I think that's one of my hero producers. And maybe that's starting to creep into my winemaking now, without thinking about it.
Yeah, beautiful. And of course, you've got a massive love for Riesling as well. And the amount of times I've had drinks with winemakers and they're always drinking beers, but usually when we go for a drink, you're always drinking very good wines, very good wines. And I remember the Clemens Bush Gold's Cap you pulled out at Crew Bar for a drink over lunch one time, and it blew my mind. But you've got some real love there for Riesling too.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it was certainly what led me to reside in Clare and set up shop there. It was a real split between Grenache, which the best place for Grenache is clearly McLaren Vale and Blewett Springs, maybe a couple of Barossa people might argue, but whatever. And Riesling, Clare Valley, and then there might be some that argue in Eden Valley as well. But I think for me that was the crux, and on the back of that we ended up making a bit of hills wines because I was travelling basically straight through the hills to get between Clare and the Vale, which was also really fun. And then now we're set up in the Barossa making a little bit of Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre here as well.
Awesome.
But Riesling is a massive passion of mine. It has been for a long time.
Yes, and I have had a couple of your other blends outside of the Grenache and Riesling realm, and so you've got two brands. You've been are you still running both, or are you just mainly concentrating on Vanguardist now?
No, it's just Vanguardist and La Petite Vanguard.
Yep.
So they kind of really just complement, like sort of really they're the same brands, complementing each other in different styles. And
perfect.
Unfortunately, during the start of COVID, we had to walk away from the other brand, which was just had its issues, and they got compiled up with the addition of the pressure of COVID, and had to walk away from that one. Yeah,
I remember when I first tried it. Was it a Grenache Syrah Tannis blend?
Yeah,
GST? Yeah, that I was like, holy moly, that's just great. And I love seeing those varieties like Tannis being blended in. And that's usually what they are, aren't they? They're blending varieties in the south of France. So
yeah, they are.
But that was a cracking wine. So what's next for Michael then? You're gonna just keep on keeping on with Vanguardist. You're making wine for anyone down there?
Yeah, so I've started a consulting role with Whistler Wines, which is very exciting.
Awesome.
It's a brand that sort of emulates and is in a very similar style. Well, less for the next generation brand that will be quite an easy transition, I think. And working with the Pfeiffer family, and specifically Sam, is going to be exciting. I know he spent a lot of time up in Queensland selling booze back in the day.
Little creatures, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, exactly. So between his passion for sales and marketing, and for me getting the right booze in his hands, I think it's going to be a fun program. And
awesome.
Vanguardist is just try and keep on improving and learning from what we're doing, and get lucky with some vintage weather, maybe. So a bit of rain, and we've got a new project coming out from the Riverlands, which will hopefully hit the shelves in about 6 weeks. After unfortunately losing all of our Riesling and all of our whites from the hills, we went from a 50-50 white and red producer to 100% red in about 4 weeks last year.
Yes.
So we found a little bit of fruit out of the Riverland to complement what we're doing with La Petite, and that's really exciting as well.
Awesome. Yep.
And,
adapting.
Adapting. And we actually made some wine in New Zealand this year as well. So there will be Hawke's Bay Syrah hitting my wine in the Barossa in about 2 weeks' time.
Mate, awesome! I can't wait.
That's really exciting. Yeah,
that is fantastic.